And welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. I think we've overcome our technical issues, and hopefully we'll stay connected. Everything will be fine. So, Ryan, we were talking with Clay about some of the new ideas in terms of how to approach wellness. Actually, I'd like to use a new term. I'm going to call it, instead of health care or even wellness, why don't we call it life care? Because when we give people back their years of life, it doesn't matter if you're 80 and you've got a degenerating knee, you start taking Collagen Max, and you take a joint performance and tendon member, and you say, hey, I don't need to go for that knee replacement. I got a hydroviscous layer, in other words, lubricated my joint up. My joint feels good. I can get out, maybe walk with a cane, but maybe they're walking without having to do a knee replacement. Maybe they've got a chronic recurring shoulder tendonitis, and they started taking our anti-inflammatories, Inflamex, which not only breaks up the intercapsular adhesions, but also when they take things like Collagen Max and Tendon Mender, they're actually going to state those tenocytes and actually make them lay down and start to regenerate collagen and increase the tensile strength, reduce the swelling, so even in their wrist or their foot, if they have a tarsal tunnel syndrome or carpal tunnel syndrome, it's going to correct it. So let's talk about that for a minute. What we have here at Nutrimedical is life care. And I mentioned an idea for what I call an overall system, which we'll talk about later. But let's talk about Tendon Mender, Joint Performance, Collagen Max, that trio, for giving people back life care for their joints.
Yeah. Well, this is a great point about mobility and overall health. When we lose our mobility, we're in big, big trouble, no matter what age we're at. It's going to have severe consequences to our long-term health and enjoyment of life. So that's one of the big things, too, is wanting to be able to get out and enjoy yourself. And most of the options we're given these day and ages are pharmaceutical-based that have a lot of downside to them. So these are really powerful. First off, I like pointing out Inflamex, which is a enteric-coated enzyme formulation. It allows these enzymes to basically get into systemic circulation and work on inflammatory issues and breaking down when there's been damage to tissues and so forth, kind of clearing that area. It's almost like, if you will, tow trucks clearing out damage on the freeway if you have a car pile up, and allowing the body to start recovering at a much faster pace, whether that's acute or more chronic issues. So it's a good one to start with for a lot of people. Joint Performance is a formulation that's very exciting. It actually has to do with the mechanism of helping your synovial fluid, which encapsulates your joints. And just like giving an oil change to a car, every 5,000 miles, the oil's getting sludgy and it's not working very well. And if that doesn't improve, there's going to be engine trouble. Well, the same thing's going on in your joints. If there's inflammation, the synovial fluid becomes viscous. It's not working like it should, and all of a sudden you're getting more aches, pains, less recovery, and eventually you start getting cartilage breakdown in the joint. And so Joint Performance has been clinically studied to show that it can prevent this damage from occurring and actually improve the viscosity of the synovial fluid again. And so for people that are starting to go down the wrong road, what a great way to kind of make a U-turn and go the other direction.
Exactly.
Tendon Mender, last one there. This has been just a blockbuster in the Nutrimedical line because there's so many people challenged with repetitive motion injuries. So it could be the shoulder issues, tennis elbow, Achilles, plantar fasciitis, like carpal tunnel with the hand. And unfortunately, these things are so plaguing, and a lot of times there's no good solutions. Even with rehabilitation, a lot of times people find that all they can do is either take pain medicines or like put some kind of brace or just literally limit the range of motion they're using. And that's not a way to live. And Tendon Mender is so exciting because it's breakthrough in nutraceutical science that shows that the ingredients in here are very unique in basically kind of reprogramming, if you will, the tenocytes, the cells make up our tendons, and causing them to realign, even in the face of inflammation, realign, lay down, and thin out. And that means that it allows people to reduce their pain, get their range of motion back, and basically restore their function the way it should be. And it has just been a home run hit for a lot of people that have kind of been suffering for sometimes months, sometimes years. It's a really neat formulation there.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we had a recent case of a gentleman who wanted to get off of dialysis. And I tell people you just need to get 15 to 20% of normal kidney function to get off dialysis, right? And it's important for people to understand that it's possible. But what you have to do is you have to approach it from several things. The first is you want to get rid of the senescent cells. So you want to use malignant block. Malignant block helps to stimulate the cells to repair themselves or to promote cell apoptosis and the body clean up the dead or senescent older cells. So it works for both polycystic kidney disease and people who have renal dysfunction caused by diabetes where their proteins are cross-linking. The next thing you need to do is you got to protect the glomeruli, and the first thing you want to do there is to use ultrathiamine B1 and vein away. Let's talk about these three to start with, and then we'll add some others to look at stem cells support therapies and some of the newer types of approaches that you can combine stem cell therapy with our Nutrimeds to get regeneration, energetic technology like lumen photon, mild hyperbaric oxygen, and even the 8D-LRIS biophotonic, if you want to call it feedback and morphogenic field therapy, where you actually generate a epigenetic field to regenerate the tissue. So let's start off with vein away, ultrathiamine B1, and those are very important. And to improve microcirculation to nattokinase. So let's look at these things for kidney. This gentleman wanted to kind of have, how can you get off of the dialysis?
Vein away is a very powerful formulation. It's been studied for over 50 years. It actually, the material comes from the sweet orange, kind of that white part of the orange that a lot of people go, ooh, what is that? That's gross. Well, particularly in these organic sweet oranges that come out of Spain, they're able to extract the material known as diacetyl. And this material is fascinating because it works as an antioxidant, and it helps to protect our bodies and circulation in a big way. But one of the ways that it's helping is with the veins and their function. And so all of this, the veins in our body, sometimes when we see dysfunction, you're going to see signs like spider veins or varicose veins, or you may be diagnosed, by a vascular surgeon with CVI, chronic venous insufficiency, or you may have hemorrhoid suffering. But all these things are kind of warning lights that are pointing to greater challenges. One can be the kidneys, where you're looking at all this microvascular area that's very sensitive and needs to be working very well and protected, and that's what vein away has been shown to do to the kidneys. Even when they're starting to not perform like they should, vein away has been able to help restore the function of the kidneys. But in the cardiovascular progression, which so many people need to be concerned about, right, because that's the highest risk we have of death in the United States and really around the world, is a cardiovascular event. Well, this material has been shown to be very powerful at upsetting or disrupting that initial progression that's stimulating cardiovascular disease, and has to do with the adhesion of intracellular molecules. And it's a very powerful tool, so people can see the difference in a lot of cases in their bodies. But knowing what's going on in the vascular system and protecting the kidneys, it's a great product to think about.
Yeah, exactly. Now the whole approach can integrate the best of medicine too, where you're getting a 24-hour urine creatinine clearance, an ultrasound of your kidneys, or high-resolution MRI. The first thing you want to be checking for is microalbumin. As a best marker of improved glomerular function, is microalbumin levels should drop toward normal, which means the leakiness of the tight junctions in the glomeruli are normalizing. Then let's talk about stimulation of regeneration, and these are the regenerative nutraceuticals. The first thing you want to do is you want to get some vitamin C, some ascorbic acid, and full vitamin K2. And you can use a little lower dosages in a person that has renal dysfunction, but you want to get at least a couple of power Cs 3 times a day, and at least one full vitamin K2 3 times a day. You want to be using a malignant block to stimulate those cells to repair the DNA and the ellagic acid. For stem cell stimulation, you want to be using solid organ regeneration. Requires copper and zinc, which is in the Vitamin Mineral Max and Minerals Plus, and you want to be using NutriPhos, which is phospholipids, because every solid organ, kidneys and liver, require phospholipids, and I recommend usually the NutriPhos and the Neurogen to regenerate any solid organ. Same with blood vessel walls, by the way. If you add Neurogen to your vascular protocol with your omega fatty acids, you get much better regeneration of heart and blood vessel walls, adding Neurogen, which is DHA, the algae-based DHA. So when we come back, we'll continue talking about this line of how to help someone with renal dysfunction. There's an example of how you can regenerate any solid organ, but you need a proper support, and you may need other therapies as well. Back in just a minute. Stay tuned.
But it wasn't because I didn't know enough.
Welcome back, and if you're out there listening and you say, I have a burning question on a health issue, do call in. And if you don't want to call in, you can call our orders line, 888-212-8871, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. We have someone answering the phones. Often it's today it's Stephen. It'll be maybe Mitzi or Chris or Michelle, my dear and wonderful wife, who also co-hosts the hour on Friday. And Ryan, let's talk about anti-aging for your eyes. Most people don't realize, besides your bones and your blood vessels going faster than you wanted to, and your heart, your eyes are one of those things that people often neglect. And we tell people, please take Vision Max every day. We add Can-C eye drops. We also recommend our Silver 100 to cure any pathogens in the eyes. But let's talk about what's in Vision Max. Why is it so important for people to take Vision Max daily? And by the way, for men out there, this product we could call Vision Max Prostate Max, but it would confuse people because it works on both. And the components in it are actually going to protect your eyes and your prostate gland for male, but they help protect against other kinds of problems, such as immune system deficiency in females, protecting your blood vessel walls, and stopping free radicals with the quercetin. So let's go over what's in it. Why is it so powerful? And of course, it has super high potency of all the components, so it's better than any eye formula. I used to use for many years Ocuvite, which is developed by a friend of mine, Steve Levine, back from Algae Research Group. But this far exceeds that formula. It's a much better formula for eye support. Yeah. So
it's a powerful formulation, like you said, for the eyes and other areas like the prostate and the body because of the way it's designed. So it has a whole host of ingredients in here, including zinc, which a lot of people are familiar with. This has the albion amino acid chelate version, so that you make sure that it's highly absorbable and won't be competing with other amino acids for absorption. But it's got high amounts of taurine, N-acetylcysteine, bilberry extract, lutein, alpha-lipoic acid, quercetin, and lycopene. And unlike many of the eye formulas that are on the marketplace that people know about, these ingredients are at clinically relevant dosing, and so that people can get much better results in using a formulation like this than typically what they can find anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Now the kind of components, what happens is in the back of the eye, a lot of people, for example, they'll have a cataract surgery and they'll say, Doc, my vision's going now. And I said, well, how's your cataract doing? Oh, it's fine. And they'll get retinal inflammation. They don't realize eye inflammation can be in the front of the eye where the canals of Schlemm are being blocked by inflammation, oftentimes stealth pathogens like mycobacteria, virus, and fungi, especially in diabetics where you can have fungi, believe it or not, in the mycelial form block the canals of Schlemm, and you get open-angle glaucoma, it's called. But in the back of the eye, you get inflammation, and you get wet or dry macular changes. And so we want to turn off that inflammation, and there's a couple of other components I find good for the eye. Free radicals, cell detox, glutathione, Nutrimedical, and Regenerex. The eye is the most oxidative tissue in your body. Per gram of tissue, the eye uses up 9 times more oxygen than your brain, your general brain, and your brain uses up 25% of the oxygen of your entire body, even though it's only 1/20th of the mass. So it gives you an idea just how fast the oxidative stress is on the eye. And if you don't provide antioxidant protection, especially against ultraviolet light, scalar radiation, even from cell phones, people don't realize we're now seeing studies where people that are on the dominant side, if they're right-handed, they're getting right-sided cataracts and macular changes and retinopathy. We see this in the same thing if people are outside a lot. The amount of ultraviolet B, C, and D light, which are higher energy, went from 23% 23 years ago to over 75% now. Of the energy of the light is in the higher energy spectra range. So, yeah, you're really in danger if you don't wear proper eyewear and proper caps, and if you don't take antioxidants, especially now with people even using cell phones on the side of their head. They don't realize they're not just oxidizing their blood-brain barrier, which you can see in a digital thermogram, but you're also changing the electroencephalogram on a quantitative EEG or a regular electroencephalogram, and the back of your eye you're burning, basically. And you're interfering with the epigenetics of the genes which switch on and off based on frequency. So taking antioxidants, let's go over these. I tell people if you want to protect your eyes, take your Vision Max and also take the triad of Regenerex, Cell Detox, Glutathione, and Nutrimedical. Why are these so important for the back of the eye? Well,
cell defense is a very important formulation. It is It's highly bioavailable curcuminoids, and the curcumin is an extremely powerful antioxidant in our body, and we know that this is a substance that if you can get it absorbed into the bloodstream, it can go everywhere in the body, including in the eyes, to the brain, and do its work in a good way. And so what makes this formulation different than other curcumin on the market is it's delivered in a controlled release format, so it breaks down over 6 hours, and then it's also enhanced with a material known as bioperin, which has been shown in human studies to increase the absorption of the curcumin by 2,000% over just taking a normal form of curcumin. And so if you are using curcumin product, you really need to make sure that you're getting the most bioavailable version, because a lot of times it's just literally swept out of the body. You're not getting much of anything that you can work with, especially in far-reaching areas like the eyes or the brain and so forth.
Exactly. Now, the curcumin, of course, is cell defense. Cell defense is also very good, right? Our cell defense, the curcumin. The Regenerex is kind of like a mixture of the best of, isn't it? And it works on turning on genes. So it works longer than most regular antioxidants because it's actually a gene switch that it uses. That which is a completely different concept than the regular antioxidants too, isn't it? So it's basically saying we're not just going to throw in an antioxidant like even ascorbic acid, which we have as power C, which you have to take multiple times a day. We're actually going to turn on the genes to upregulate the enzymes to protect you from that oxidative stress, which is completely new. One of the other areas that I think is a big area that people are concerned, and I get more emails on this one on people's genes, is methylation. You mentioned earlier, we get people that have depression, and I tell people the first thing you do if you correct three things. You correct your what's called inhibitory neurotransmitters, you stop the free radicals in the brain, and you improve methylation. And you have to also, part of that process, remineralize, which is why you got to take Vitamin Mineral Max, Minerals Plus, and I recommend also Indiamese. But you need to take, and I tell people that you really need to be on Cimethyl. You need to be on BioLVR, Superfolate, and Power Methyl B12, and a scoop each 3 times a day of the Brain Mag and Calm Mind. And a lot of time Calm Mind will work on its own, but when you add the Brain Mag, it amplifies it tremendously. So 1 scoop of each 3 times a day, even before bedtime. You're going to have nice, calm dreams. You're going to wake up well rested. You're not going to be sedated. You can substitute it for any kind of, it'll help to cut any kind of food addiction, alcohol addiction, marijuana addiction, or anything else. It helps to break them very nicely. So if you're doing behavioral modification or this thing called EMDR, eye movement desensitization therapy with an advanced psychologist, these natural therapies will help your brain chemistry normalize much faster. So when we come back, we'll talk about anti-aging for your brain and Cognition Plus, a smarter than an hour pill, like that movie Limitless. If you want to be limitless, start Cognition Plus and Brain Power and take Neurogen for remyelination. By the way, if you're a pregnant mother, take Neurogen, you're going to get smarter babies with more myelination of their nerve fiber tracts.
Don't complain.
This will be free. What a glorious time to be free. What a beautiful world this will be. What a glorious time to be free. What a beautiful world.
And welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. And Ryan, I think we're helping solve a lot of problems for people. A lot of people assume that they've gone to their doctor, and I use some what I call viciously accurate definitions of what doctors have become, and it's not by their own fault. A lot of them are basically, when they go to medical school, they have all these high-minded ideas. There's different segments. A lot of them think, well, I'm going to be respected, and I'm going to be and they have gamma-type personalities, so they can have delayed gratification, working their tail off for years at ridiculous hours. When I did my residency in internal medicine at Vancouver General, they had us on 12 residents in first year and second year of the largest hospital complex outside the Karolinska Hospital complex in Sweden, Stockholm. 17 buildings, 7,000 inpatients. 7,000. And we were on call for half of the hospital with 17 buildings. The tow motors running 2 and 3 levels and 2.5, 3 miles across the complex. And 22 days straight, I had to work one time without any breaks, no scheduled sleep time at all. And I think what people need to understand is when doctors go through the kind of regimen, they're not willing to kind of make waves with their state motor medical board or the hospital licensing committee unless they have a personality defect like me. It doesn't necessarily becoming brighter and learning things. Part of it is what I call a gist of the genes plus a combination of that and a character defect, willingness not to be a sheep but a sheepdog. And I think that's what we both are. We're trying to be sheepdogs. I call myself a sheepdog for God, because we're trying to help people to preserve their health, whether they've got toxemia, pregnancy, by the way, which just is magnesium deficiency. Let's talk about our different magnesiums for a while, because this is important. Besides our Vitamin Mineral Max and Minerals Plus, which are, by the way, are essential, whatever protocol you're on, if you're not taking these, you're crazy. You also need to take good omega oils like our omega fatty acids, omega supreme krill that has astaxanthin, one of the most powerful antioxidants in the world for your brain, heart, blood vessels, solid organs. And the omega cod liver liquid, which is essential if you're going to try to correct depression, vascular disease, solid organ regeneration. But let's talk about magnesium for a minute. Magnesium glycinate malonate, and of course our brain mag, and then the magnesium potassium citrate, which will stop formation of kidney and gallbladder stones. So let's start off. I love the magnesium glycinate malonate. This is absolutely not going to give you diarrhea. Any other form of magnesium is going to really blast you, as I say. But if you take our magnesium malthreonate and magnesium glycinate malonate in our brain mag, it's not going to give you loose bowels. It's not going to, make you regret the fact that you're trying to restore your magnesium, which is the most important mineral.
Right.
Let's talk about it.
It's easy and safe and effective to use those formulations. So simple.
Yeah, the important thing, I think, is that people don't realize that no matter what your health problem is, if you were to actually measure, and this is for doctors out there that want to learn how to do Dr. Bill medicine, if you want to see how stressed your patient is, measure a 24-hour output of magnesium in their urine in a number of milligrams. Have the lab say, I want a milligram analysis. They just basically take the concentration, take the volume of the urine, it'll tell them how many milligrams did this person dump. As a person is under more stress, they're going to dump more magnesium. Radiological stress, surgical stress, emotional stress, job stress, any kind of stress. You're going to, fitness stress. Let's say you're doing, powerlifting and you're running 20 miles. Your body's going to deplete yourself of magnesium. If you don't replace that, you get in real big trouble, because your 300 enzyme systems are dependent on magnesium. Some of the most important are DNA and glutathione peroxidase. So let's talk about magnesium glycinate malate. Why was this formula formulated like this, and what makes it so superior to any other form of magnesium?
Well, absorption. You get to maximize the absorption effectiveness of the formulation by using this specific amino acid chelate blend designed by Albion Chelates. And so by using this blend in particular, not only do you get to maximize the absorption of it, but the carriers, the amino acids that are working as a carrier to allow this to absorb as a dipeptide, deliver really beneficial results like malic acid into the body. And there's been clinical studies done where people suffering from things like chronic fatigue and fibromyalgic type pain do very well when they get somewhere around 1,200 milligrams of malic acid with about 400 to 600 milligrams of magnesium. And this formulation allows you to achieve those levels in just 4 capsules a day. So there's a lot of additional benefits that have been designed with the formulation versus just saying, hey, I just need to get magnesium in there. And so these are things that most people, are not paying attention to, or do they consider when they're buying products. And so these various forms of magnesium allow you to get so much more than you're just thinking about with a lot of just over-the-counter magnesium products.
The question is, how many magnesium do you think I take a day? A magnesium glycinate malate?
Oh, I would say you go aggressive. 8 a day, maybe?
Oh, no, more than that. I take 6 twice a day. That's an average. And if I figure I'm under more stress, I'll take more than that. But at least 6 twice a day. I take, of course, the magnesium as the magnesium L-threonate is brain mag, too. And I usually take... if I'm stressed at night or if I wake up and I need to go back to sleep, I'll take probably 2 or 3 scoops of brain mag and 2 or 3 scoops of the Calmine. You want to go to sleep nicely and have a good, high REM sleep. You want to be doing that. Also, you want to restore neurotransmitter levels. You should be taking bio-LVR, which is activated B6, folic acid B12. Samethyl, I usually take a sachet twice a day. for methylation. And by the way, what I'm doing is I did all the research. If your body's trying to get rid of heavy metals, you need to take Semethyl. Some of the dentists think that you taking a Semethyl is going to pull mercury out of your teeth. It doesn't. What happens is the mercury, that's the organic vapor, is swallowed in your sucus entericus, the fluids that go down from your stomach and your GI tract, which are about 1.5 liters a day. And it's your bowel bacteria that methylate it. So if you want to get rid of the methylating bacteria that are going to actually create the form of the toxic forms, you got to have probiotics. Believe it or not, one of the treatments for mercury tooth amalgams is to make sure you're taking living probiotic and living probiotic ultra. And to get the Semethyl, bio-LVR, and superfolate, so you can, and B12, super power muscle B12, so you can get rid of not only mercury but other heavy metals, because the primary way that heavy metals are removed from the body is methylation. So if your methylation pathways are deficient, you're going to build up not just in your sequestered compartment, which hides it away, but in what's called the free circulating compartment, which will damage your brain. It locks onto what's called the beta subunit of neurotubulin to cut off your dendrites, like a micro scissors snipped off the end of the dendrite. It can lock on to the enzymes like glutathione peroxidase and directly interfere with zinc metalloenzymes, making new DNA and helping cells replicate. So, mercury is really bad. And of course, we have other biotoxins now in the geoengineered atmosphere of the planet. We have thorium, and every 50th thorium atom is radioactive. Nanoparticle barium, aluminum, and strontium. Those are all put up in the upper atmosphere. They're paramagnetic minerals used for plasma interferometry to create new weather systems and to steer them through the upper troposphere through Tesla-type technologies. And I talk about this on the show, and people say, well, I don't know if I believe you. I say, well, fine, check it out yourself. I'll give you the exact nature of how this works. Same thing goes on in the body. You've got to block all the toxic effects of mercury ballast lights by remineralizing your body and to protect it. Next area I'd like to talk about is cell membrane regeneration, Nutrifos and omega fatty acids. A lot of people think, well, I want to regenerate my kidneys. I said, your kidneys are made of a whole bunch of cell membranes, little cells, and if you don't have phospholipids like Nutrifos and Neurogen and omega fatty acids, you cannot regenerate a solid organ. You also have to have the proper magnesium, zinc, and copper in order for you to be able to generate new DNA. So, important stuff. And if you have a question on a health issue, you want to call it live, and again, remember, it's only on wellness questions this hour, 800-259-5791. Coming up in hour number 3, we are trying to get our guests scrambled around. If not, it'll be open lines on any topic at all, 800-259-5791. And I have lots of news to cover, especially the announcement of the candidacy of the Wicked Witch of the West.
You may have heard about taking silver supplements for better health, but not...
Back and wanted to cover some kind of wellness news lately. One of the interesting things is the whole idea of how do you improve brain function and boost brain activity. And one of the components, of course, that's important is the ginkgo tree. Ginkgo biloba, the oldest tree in existence, deemed by this called a living fossil. It's interesting. The ginkgo plant improves. By the way, ginkgo is in our cardiovasc, which is a new name for our cardivite. It's called cardiovasc. You use the term cardivite to search in our search box, you'll find it, but it's called cardiovasc now. We have some bottles with the labeling cardivite. It's the same components present. What happened is in Canada, they have legislated that they cannot have ginkgo biloba. Interestingly, ginkgo is one of the most important things for improving and promoting brain health and longevity. And it's important to understand that. So there's an interesting article I'll post up today from Green Med Info that talks about ginkgo biloba and brain health. Quite an amazing thing. The power of ginkgo revealed through science. It tends to restore brain microcirculation, and can stimulate what's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, and the protein found in the brain and peripheral nervous system, essential for regulation, growth, and survival of brain cells, important for long-term memory. So in other words, form new neural networks, you need this. So it's a very important factor for that. So we have the cardiovasc will work in your brain as well as your peripheral blood vessels as well. Some other recent articles that I think are worth talking about. The FDA, of course, is trying to scrutinize homeopathy. urgent action required. People have to understand what homeopathy is. Basically, your fluids of your body, all water molecules and all living planets in the cosmos and solar system, there's 100 billion stars that are Earth-like planets in the Goldilocks zone that potentially could have life. And of those 100 billion planets, water is what's called an informational superconductor, which means the hydrogen bonding in the water molecules can take a frequency from a biological molecule in solution that's like a tuning fork, and the infrared spectra of that tuning fork through the biological molecules translated to water is the homeopathy, which is why lower dilutions give a high what's called signal-to-noise ratio. So the more dilute it is, especially if it's activated by a pulsed magnetic field or pulsed light like infrared light, like the lumen photons, you can take your supplements and put them on a lumen pad, and you're going to get much more power out of those supplements because you're changing the biophotonic energy in them, which will often tell people, if you're going to take your supplements, put it on your lumen pad for 5 or 10 minutes before you take them, and you're going to get more effect. Or if you have a Soma Pulse, we, by the way, don't carry those anymore, but we're looking at negotiating with a company that will be producing a similar type of more advanced machine at a better price. So that's something that's coming down the road as well. Beef is in big trouble. Of course, the dairy industry guidelines, the RBGF is a very big deal. The U.S. government is updating their dietary guidelines, and it's good news for the planet, but big beef is not pleased. Of course, what's happening is, and this is something people should be aware of, that the animal husbandry should not have animals caged and housed in gross conditions, because the animals have high levels of what's called cryptochromes in their tissue if they're stressed. The nutritionists board, they're often given antibiotics, therefore they have often multi-drug resistant staph or strep or other organisms present in their bodies. And they've been doing all kinds of things that I consider obscene to the animals, and also obscene to eat. Animals have been treated this way. It's really bad. 2015 Dietary Guidelines for American Committee decided to recommend that the guidelines include for the first time sustainability in their recommendations. U.S. government did indeed recommend food that is good for both our health and the environment. Impact would be felt in schools and other government facilities. So livestock production, mostly industrialized beef production, 15% of global carbon emissions. Of course, this is all garbage, carbon emission stuff. And this idea of eliminating beef because of that. What we need to do is have beef that are actually eating grass, because it creates conjugated linoleic acid. That's why we have the lipo flush. If you want to restore your vascular health, get rid of fat out of fatty deposits in your body, including areas of cellulite, you need to eat lipo flush. Lipo flush is one of the things, along with leptin metabolic, turns off what's called angry fat. It's your cytokines from your angry fat that cause diabetes. So if you take sufficient amounts of diabetoline, biotin plus, minerals plus, chromium cruciferate, leptin metabolic, and lipoflush, you reverse the metabolic underlying cause of diabetes. The most important of those, right off the top in terms of your food, is to have CLA. That's why we recommend, if you're going to eat beef, have only sustainable beef that's treated humanely and has CLA because it's got conjugated linoleic acid because it has been eating grass and not grains. That gives you an idea of just how insane our whole food industry is. Coconut oil, of course, I tell people, I think most adults should be probably drinking Califia, which is a combination of almond and coconut milk, and you can get other forms of milk as well from cashew milk is also available, but I like the almond coconut milk. The almond is, of course, considered the nut of the prophets because it's so complete. The other one that's very good is pistachio. And how to detox from fluoride. There's an interesting comment here about detoxing from fluoride. I get it all the time. First thing is you need the activated Tesla form of iodine, nutriodine. You need to be taking detoxification things such as the NutriDefense that has IP6 to help pull out the combinations of magnetite and fluoride in the brain, and so the body can recycle those. You need to be taking things like xenoestrogen detox, and the Nutriodine is the most important component there to remove the fluoride from the body, along with the use of these other detox agents that we talked about in the last hour. So fluoride is a big deal. other headlines as well. And you want to also make sure if you're hypothermic, it's a better, we call thyroid resistant syndrome is a better term than hypothyroidism. The vast majority of the population, as they get older, are thyroid resistant, and many of them are hypothyroid, frankly, with antibodies against the thyroid. The thyroid resistance basically always goes along with diabetes, heart disease, etc. Brother Barnes called it hypothyroidism. I like to call it TRS. Hypothyroidism, I like to call autoimmune hypothyroidism, is where you have antibodies against your thyroid gland, antimicrosomal antithyroid globulin antibodies. And you can prove it by measuring core body temperature. It's a very easy thing to do. We have, I'm doing an update on my articles on Fukushima Daiichi. I did one last year. And your radiation protection, the first thing you need to be taking is Nutridyne. You need to take Nutritrella. Magnesium is very important for cell protection of detox glutathione. Regenerex and cell detox glutathione. These are extremely important. And because of the stress of radiation, you need to repair your DNA. You want to take ellagic acid and malignant block, Power C+, and full vitamin K2 for DNA repair. Because the DNA is under damage from tritium. The way tritium works and deuterium, these are heavy water, they slide the codons of your DNA. It's called DNA intercalation, and they destroy the ability to replicate DNA, and it can cause heteroptopic DNA, where chunks of DNA are stuck to other chromosomes. So it's a big deal. And so you want to protect that. That's happening at a constant rate. If your body does repairs it quickly enough, you're fine. What's going to happen is the population, as we get more and more bioaccumulation of radiotoxins, it's going to start affecting human fertility over the next 20 years, decrease IQ, cause small for dates, increase dementia, increase fragility in elderly people who have marginal nutrition and marginal mineral levels in their various tissues, and antioxidant protection. And it'll accelerate their demise. So, not a good thing. It's a form of radiological omnicide is what's going on. And I can lay out specific scientific parameters, although I have no cooperation from any of the typical labs that can do nuclear spectroscopy here in America, Canada, Britain, Germany, France, Japan, or anywhere I've tried. None of them will cooperate with me. And that is because they don't want to ask questions or even get a scientific basis to place up a dialogue to discuss these issues. And we're going to come on hour 3 with topics on anything. Lots of news to discuss. The announcement of the arrival on the Democratic scene of the Wicked Witch of the West, cackling her way to the 2016 election, Hitlery, rotten Clinton. Back in a moment. Your questions, 800-259-5791. Any topic, 800-259-5791. Tell Board Op Dan today what your question is, what your issue is, and you will have a voice worldwide. Remember, this is your program. This is your program out there. We're trying to make you, mentor you, to make you the best you can be and the most knowledgeable so you have the right choices in your life. Back in a moment with Hour 3.
From the makers of Block It Pocket, we bring you a serious message about the health risks associated with cell phones and wireless devices. Studies have